This is More Than Money with Mapalo Maku, brought to you by Sasfin Wealth.
Welcome to More Than Money. I'm Mapalo Maku, a personal finance columnist, and I love having money conversations that change people's perspective about finances. Why am I doing this podcast, you might ask? To talk about money. Not the paper stuff. I mean the baggage, the feeling, the emotional, heart-wrenching stuff. We find this conversation so uncomfortable to have, which is why on this podcast, I have decided to have this very difficult conversations. We are going to have some difficult discussions because better money conversations lead to better money confidence, and healthy money dialogue leads to healthy money decisions. Eugene Khoza is a renowned South African comedian known for his sharp wit and hilarious stand-up performances. Beyond his comedic talent, Eugene has also ventured into various other aspects of the entertainment industry. Today, we're not just hearing about the comedy stuff. We're hearing about your personal finance. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Just give me a picture of a Eugene who is 10 years old. What was life like growing up in your household?
Life was interesting. I grew up in a township in Pretoria called Mamelodi. I was number 3 of 4 siblings. We grew up in a 4-roomed house, and I know white people always wonder what a 4-roomed house is. They're like, it was so big. I'm like, no, the entire house
It's 4 rooms.
is separated into 4 rooms.
It's not 4 bedrooms. I hear you.
And that's where I spent my life growing up until I was about 16, and then we were able to move to town and life became better.
Yes.
But then most of my formative years were actually growing up there, and memories that I've made were there.
We're in Mamelodi.
Yeah, and I remember just playing in the streets with my friends, typical stuff. You know, playing soccer, going far and checking out other sections, walking by foot, hoping to come back before the sun goes down.
Yes.
You know, and I'd always sit outside our house in the back gate. You could see Silverton and Waverley from there. So I would always dream and wonder what people that live there
On
are doing.
the other side.
Yeah. So that was me growing up.
All right. So just give me a little bit of background to your parents. What would they say about money? What were the conversations they would have about money, if there were any?
Growing up, my parents divorced when I was about, I think, 14. My dad was in between jobs all the time. You know, he used to be in the army. Then he was in the police, and then he started doing other things, and he didn't do anything at all. So I could understand the stress that it caused my mom. My mom was a nurse, just retired 5 years ago, and then she had the burden of raising all of us financially, you know. And I always say to people, my mom's approach to doing the things that you want was our life savior, you know, because she always approached the topic of money straightforward. We knew how much she earned, and she would give us turns every month to go to the ATM and withdraw money that was needed for the week for us to go through, you know, for her to go to work, for us to go to school, for us to buy groceries. So we always knew. So we never had a chance to ask for things that were not there because we knew how much realistically was always there, you know. And whenever there was a surplus, which was always in July when she got her 13th check, then all of us got a budget to do what the hell we want with our money. And what it did to us, it helped us save. And then she would say to us, don't save money that you are supposed to treat yourself with. And I grew up with that mentality. And I know now sometimes it feels like it's irresponsible, but I'm thankful for my mom for teaching me that money is not everything, for one.
Yes.
Your emotional well-being comes first. And sometimes we forget what we work for. We don't work only for status. We work to please ourselves and to reward ourselves, you know. Like when someone goes to a restaurant month end and just buys everything, you don't know where they come from. You don't know how deprived they were when they were growing. You don't know what that bill does to them emotionally, and it motivates them to earn much more.
Yeah.
So she taught us to reward ourselves for the work that we do. If you're fortunate to love what you do, you've hit the jackpot. But if you happen to be in a space where you have to do what you have to do, when you get that money to use, please make yourself happy.
Yeah. But for me, it sounds like your mom was a really wise woman, or is a wise woman. What do you think just letting you in on this is what I earn? How has that shaped you as Eugene right now?
I'm the same with my daughter. I show her how much exists and what can be done with it and what things cost. And then from then onwards, it doesn't mean that she must shoulder the burden of what if there's not enough. It just means she understands that things cost money. So she values things quite differently from other people. And I've seen people trying to guilt trip their children into valuing the house that they bought or the car that they own. I'm like, no, I teach my daughter to value her education even more. So every month I'd send her exactly what her school statement is and that it's paid. So that when she goes to school for 30 days, she understands that this whole thing, it costs money.
It costs a lot of money.
Yes. And also she can have self-pride knowing that this thing is paid. She doesn't have to have the anxiety of wondering if the place that she spends most of her time with, can she really afford to be here?
Yes.
Or can my parents afford to bring me to this place? So I feel like that part I always take care of because I want her to know that the thing that she enjoys the most, where her friends are, where her routine is, where her education is, it's not her problem to worry about. Every month she must have the relief, just like the bank has the relief of knowing that the car is paid, and the landlord, whoever, has the relief of knowing that she must also have the same relief.
But someone else could come in, Eugene, and say, isn't that a burden on your child? Because obviously how old is your child?
She's 14, turning 15.
She's 14, turning 15. Because someone can say, but isn't that a burden on them? Because sometimes, why should she know that the school fees is paid? Because she's assuming you as a parent, you are going to take care of it
that
either way.
assumption is a big problem.
Yeah.
But we take for granted that kids can see when something is wrong. We think kids of parents that have bought fancy stuff but are hardly home don't see the stress that it causes on their parents or the strain that it causes on their marriage or relationships with them even. Kids know. So the minute you alleviate or you tick off all the things that could be potential worries to teenagers especially, you've done yourself a favor. If they in their mind can think, we live here, I go to school here, we drive here, and then we eat this. You've already said life exists in 4 parts.
Yes.
Which money is responsible for. The rest is up to you to make meaningful connections out there. Does it make sense? They don't have to worry about, am I going to have a roof to sleep under? That's what wealthy people don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about 30 days later, because most people, successful and unsuccessful people, we live on a 30-day countdown. Every 30 days, we have to think, this thing has to be done, this thing has to be done.
Yeah.
So imagine if you can teach your children to emotionally live the same way that well-off people live without having to worry about the basics need to be taken care of. And once you've done that, you free them up to make meaningful conversations, connections, and actually grow up without worrying about finances.
Yeah. So let's go back again with you and your dad. And I mean, there had been many transitions in his life, right, when it comes to money. How did that make you feel as a child growing up? And obviously, one of the things that are very important, you mentioned, kids are very observant. So you could see there was something there that you could see when it comes to money, when it comes to his work and comes to their relationship. How did that impact you as a child, thinking about money, even before your mom taught you these lessons?
Sure, it made me stress about him more than anything else. Because I could see the way he did things, that he didn't understand how much life cost. And this is as a child. Because I already felt like I understood. If he's out there not earning, how does he think these 4 pillars are taken care of? Our shelter, food, our transportation, and our school, because that's all I care about.
Yes.
So if he's not out there earning every 30 days, so he's not aware of what's going on. So that made me sad for him, that he doesn't understand what is going on in the real world.
And how old were you when you noticed this?
I think maybe like 6 or 7. When I started school, I started understanding what the concept of money is.
6 years old.
Absolutely. Because you understand, right? Because you mow the lawn and then you get something.
Yes.
Or then they say, okay, we're going to the shopping center in the township.
And you need money for that.
Yes, we're going to go 2 trips, taxi.
Yeah.
Then you go, actually, if I walk, I can keep the taxi money. Yeah, it's yours. So I understood the concept.
Sounds like you're someone who's completely
I had no
aware.
choice. My mom was a very smart person, still is very emotionally intact and intelligent. I read books now and I'm going, how did my mom know all of these things? Because it's not like we grew up with a huge library of books.
Yeah.
But I think she learned from other people and how they did things, and then she came and imparted those things on us. So I'm thankful because of the approach that she gave us to life, you know?
She sounds like an incredible woman.
She is.
So let's go into your career as a comedian. How, as a child growing up in Mamelodi, venture into comedy? And at what point did your mom say, okay, actually you can go do this? Because I can imagine as a black parent, you taking your child to the best schools that you can afford. And now you come back and you say, I want to make people laugh.
I went to township schools all my life. I went
Yes.
to primary school called Zamintu Tugo, which was across the road from the high school that I went to,
Yes.
called Jafta Matlang. So my whole entire education was in the township, and I never went to tertiary afterwards because she simply couldn't afford it. And I luckily started working at 16, you know, on the weekends with my cousins, and we worked at the parking at the mall, and we learned to make extra money from that. So I felt like I was independent from a very young age. But as far as comedy goes, my mom has always been supportive of everything that I wanted to do. I remember when I was about 14, my daughter's age, I was fascinated with radio so much that I figured out where SABC broadcasted from in Pretoria, and it was Weaven Park in Silverton.
Yeah.
And I walked all the way there, and I wangled my way in. I asked the security guard if I could go in and watch other people working. And that's where my addiction started. And I loved radio from then onwards. And, when I was 19, I worked at the flea market, at the radio station at the flea market, and my mom always encouraged me. She gave me money to buy CDs so I can play my own music. So when I ventured into comedy, my mom was not surprised because she always knew that I was always going to do something that was out of the box regarding where I come from. It was very out of the box. I had no other experience.
Absolutely.
Or I didn't know anyone else who worked on radio or who did this or who did comedy. And I had never watched stand-up comedy in my entire life when I started doing stand-up.
You had never watched stand-up comedy?
No, I still don't watch a lot of stand-up comedy. I watch once in a while, but then I don't watch stand-up comedy. I'm not a big fan of the genre, but I understand and I love human stories, So when I started doing stand-up, it wasn't for money. It was one of those things where I wanted to try out and see what could happen. But stand-up enabled me to do television and to do radio and to do commercials and to now learn how to produce and do a podcast and write and pitch shows. So I'm always grateful to stand up because it gave me the courage and the confidence. Because I would have never been able to afford to go to an art school to learn how to be a writer or an actor. I would have never. But stand up was my ultimate audition into everything that I'm doing now.
Wow, that is so incredible. For me, as I'm talking to you, you sound like someone who's very positive, someone who is very motivated. Like, what, the future is always going to be great. How has that impacted everything that you do?
My mom used to say, and I know I quote her a lot, humans are the only creatures that know for a fact that they won't be here forever. But they keep planning so far ahead and denying themselves the experience to live. If that was true of every other animal, you would see animals carrying stuff. Birds don't go around carrying stuff. Fish don't swim carrying stuff. But humans, we carry stuff in our pockets, in our hearts, in our minds, and we are thinking so far ahead and we forget the now. So basically, later on when I grew up and I read books of Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, I understood that's what she was saying. She was basically saying, if you live too far in the future, you're not experiencing the now. Yes. And then your regrets in the future are going to be what you didn't do now.
I had just been there.
You didn't go outside. You didn't go sit in the sun. You wouldn't go pick up your kids early from school and take them for ice cream. You didn't use your health well. You didn't use your children's youth well. You didn't use your abilities well. You didn't use your financial freedom well. You didn't use your self-esteem well because everything is perishing. We act like we've bought ourselves a guarantee to live longer. So that's the problem. So I always look at things outside and I look at my life and I look at my friends and I'm always encouraging people to have hobbies and to do things that they like and prioritize the people that they love. If you have a car, drive it far. If you have a house, have people over and live in the thing. If you don't feel like there's a need for it anymore, let it go. By the time your kids grow up and they don't need you anymore as much, you won't have guilt and you won't have to guilt trip them into spending time with you because you've done all of that. And you accept that life goes in phases. So I'm a very big believer in accepting all the phases of life because I feel like in my 42 years of life almost now, I've experienced most phases and I'm still looking forward to more. And I never thought I'd be here in my life. So I always wonder, had I worried when I was still in school, sitting at a primary school desk, looking outside the window about my future, I would have wasted so much time. I would have never imagined my life like this. So what's the purpose of worry? It's interest on debt you will never repay.
Absolutely. Let's talk about seasons. What season have you been where you felt like, I don't know if tomorrow is guaranteed, especially when it comes to your finances? Have you ever been in such financial difficulty that it just dampened on your spirit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it came when I lost my son 6 years ago to this last month.
Yes.
I didn't have the will to work.
Yes.
Which is the one thing that I always had as a constant, I had my savings, but I didn't have the will to work. I had all these bills that I'd accumulated, but I didn't have the will to work. And I think that was my biggest epiphany out of that tragedy, was realizing that everything I accumulated, I really didn't own. It owned me. So without me having the ability, because there's no life cover for grief. They'll cover me if I lose my foot, if I'm riding my mountain bike or bicycle, but they won't cover me when I'm in pain and I can't work. So I started thinking to myself, so are we living life knowing that there's a string but the string is only so long. And if you pull it too hard, it will snap and everything falls apart. So if I have a house and I have a 24-year bond, right, and I skip 6 payments, and after making 10 years worth of payments,
that thing can be taken away from you.
Is that it? So my car, 100,000 rand deposit, but I've paid this thing for less 3 years.
And you're left with 6 months, but now you can't make payments. Then what happens?
So is that how the system works? So now when I realized that, because I was not emotionally available to go do the thing that I love the most.
And the thing that pays the bills.
Yes, because the insurance covers that I had were for my voice, my feet, my ability to do the work that I do.
Yes, but you didn't have the capacity to
emotionally,
do it.
I wasn't able to do it. Yeah, so what happens to me then? What happens to, where's my broker now? The one who encouraged me, actually pay 30% into your bond as a deposit. Hey, your car, put 10% there so that at least your installment. Where are those people now? When I'm emotionally unavailable to do the thing that I want to, or must I lose a foot first for insurance to pay me so I can sustain myself until the time that I can work again? So I started realizing that if I don't prioritize how I feel, then I'll always be in trouble. And I did what a lot of sensible people in business do. I voluntarily surrendered the things that were costing me a lot of money.
Wow.
I said to the bank, activate the clause, voluntary surrender, here's the car. Activate the house. I was like, here's this, take this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm
it's
fine now.
Me a prisoner.
Yes, I can't. I won't be able to. I can foresee the future. I won't be able to do it. And if my self-esteem and my worth was linked to the things that I owned, I wouldn't be here today. So I was able to make those hard decisions because I knew from the lessons from my mom that I come first and I'm the stock that needs to be replenished for this business. I'm the rent, I'm the lights, I'm the water. So if this building is not...
You are the asset that makes all these assets keep moving.
Exactly. So I had to water this plant for it to grow bigger fruit.
You are listening to More Than Money, a podcast collaboration brought to you by Sasfin Wealth. At Sasfin Wealth, we empower our clients to reach their global investment goals, to retire with dignity, and to leave a lasting legacy. If you would like to have real money conversations, visit sasfin.com/wealth and talk to us. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So let's talk about the ability to surrender. Because oftentimes when people find themselves in deep trouble, downgrading for them is the scariest thing. What will people say? Bazotini. Did you have any of those feelings?
Of course. Of course I did. But then I realized, Guti, the same feelings that I'm having, I actually reasoned same feelings that I postponed when I purchased the things that I bought.
Yeah.
I didn't buy the car for me. I bought it for what other people would think of it, right?
Yes.
So I postponed that. So if I had that enough reasoning capacity when I sat in the finance office of the dealership at Land Rover, I wouldn't have bought the car.
True.
If I thought to myself, strangers are going to say, yeah, strangers.
Yes.
Is that why I'm going in here?
Hey, boss.
For 1.5 million rand. Yeah. Is that all I'm going in for? Then I wouldn't have bought the car. But now here I am 3.5 years later, and I'm thinking to myself, if I let go of this thing, I'll still be able to drive around. I'll buy a car cash. A smaller one that I can afford that doesn't cost me anything. So am I worried the same stranger is going to bump into me now and say, where's the car? Why are you in this car? Am I really thinking that far? And I say, if ever a stranger bumps into me and says that, then I'll regret not spending the 30,000 rand a month. But if no stranger bumps into me and says, where's the old car, or why are you driving this car, then it means I've made 30,000 rand every month. Does it make sense?
But what about your family and friends? Because they knew that you were driving the Land Rover. Because the perspective is, or the perception rather, is, oh, no, he's successful. He's doing well for himself by the things that people see you owning, the car and the house. And the closest people next to you, do you not think about them as well? Because, a stranger is a stranger.
I didn't, because where were their phone calls when I was in grief? So if they call me now, then it means they were never my family. They were never my friend. The person that mattered the most said to me, you know what to do. I've raised you well. You know what to do. When I said, oh man, everything is just, she said, you know what to do. So everyone else would have come and said, oh, I had an opinion. They would have to assume that I care about their opinion over the person that raised me.
Yes,
that's one.
And the person that loves you and knows you.
Yes. And two, when I had no ability to wake up and work. So did they give me a call and say, we don't like you like this. We want you to keep the car. So we're going to make you work. We're going to come pick you up. We're going to make you feel better.
We're going to cover it this month or whatever the case might be.
We're going to send the barber to your house instead of you going to the barber. We're going to make you feel, did they say that? So if they couldn't say that, then it means that They don't exist in my world. So why am I trying to please people that I couldn't please? There's a difference between being an entrepreneur and self-employed.
Yeah.
What we are in the entertainment industry is self-employed.
Yes.
We are our own employees.
If you do not work, you do not get paid.
Yes. So instead of going, I need to make 80,000 Rand a month. That's my deficit every month that I have to
and this is
part
what
with.
covers my expenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I let go of 80,000 Rand debt, it means I made 80,000 Rand.
And peace of mind.
Yes, but I made it.
Yeah.
I made 80,000.
Yeah.
Right? Because I had the ability to make it and give it away. But now I have the ability not to make it and also not to give it away. It means that I'm investing back the 80,000 because I know what the ability to make 80,000 Rand is to outsiders.
And it looks like,
dressing up, showing up on time, rehearsing, doing all these things.
works.
Yeah, I know I can earn 80,000 Rand for other people or from other people. But then if I cut off what I have to do and what I have to pay and then focus all that energy in the 30 days that I use to make 80,000 Rand, it means I'm paying myself for my well-being.
Yeah.
I'm reinvesting in me, 80,000 Rand. And when I'm good, I'll see the investment pay off of me being able to be out there and marketable again and socially aware and emotionally aware again and then earn more money because money is always going to be there.
Yes, it's always,
But
always.
you won't.
No, absolutely.
I won't.
Oh,
So while I'm here, yeah.
Man, I'm loving this conversation, Eugene. Let us talk about the first time you made the big bucks.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember your first
Big money?
paycheck? Like where you were like, yo,
Yeah.
this is some really big bucks.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the feeling like?
I didn't have enough time to dwell on it.
Yeah.
Because I think in the first few months of earning that biggest check I've ever earned, it all went to my insecurities. I don't remember the feeling of having a lot of it. I remember the things that I bought with it. My broker said, you need to buy a house. And I bought a house. You need to pay a big deposit.
Yes, and you
then
did that.
I paid a big deposit. You need to have these covers to cover the thing that we said was an asset. Then I was like, oh, okay, now I need to pay insurance. Okay, now buy this insurance, building cover. You need to buy life cover that matches or surpasses your. So I'm like, oh, so this thing that was supposed to is costing me. It's fine, buy. So then I pay deposits because I think it's the right thing to do. It reduces my installment. What I didn't ask is how much does it reduce it by?
Yes.
And what would happen if I take the 350,000 Rand and put in an investment account? How much
Rather.
interest? How about if I owe the bank 3 million Rand and then they owe me 350,000 Rand?
Yeah.
How does that equation work? But
Yes.
I was naive because I was a person who always thought you need to do the right thing when someone else tells you, because that person was an authority figure. But they were much older than me. They were
They had
not the
been
same
in the
race as me.
industry,
They didn't come
yes.
from the same background as me. So who was I to not believe what they were saying? I didn't do my own research, just took their word for it. Then I bought the car that I've always wanted, and I bought another car, and I bought another car, and I bought things for my family and my friends who said, I need this. And I said, here you go. And I was able to earn for the longest time, So I remember the first big checks. So I'm like, I remember because I know I made everyone else feel happy as well.
What lessons have you drawn from that? I think maybe specifically around having an authority or someone you think is an authority in this area and the conversation that you think you should have had instead of the one that they brought to you. What conversation right now do you think you should have had with that person?
For most people of color, once we start having financial planners and brokers that look like us and that come from the place that we come from, our circumstances and our relationship with financial services providers will always stay the same because there's always going to be an experiential barrier, a language barrier, and also a race barrier, which is very hard to penetrate because sometimes you believe someone because they look a certain way, or sometimes you don't believe them because they look a certain way.
Yes.
So I want to be told by someone that looks like me and that can tell me and show me other examples of their clients in their brokerage firm that they've helped that are 10 years, 15 years older than me, and I can see how their life looks like then.
So you have a vision.
I have a vision, and a practical one at that. I also want to have an advisor that can give me more opportunities to make more money. Can they hook me up with an accountant who understands my business so well that I can save money and the savings that I make can go into the investments that they
are
have
talking
helped me
about.
make.
Yes.
Because it doesn't help if you throw me over this ledge of now all of a sudden having 60,000 Rand worth of debt because it looked like a good investment. But then I'm spending 30% of my money on tax. So how about you put me together? Yeah, in your network. Do you have a client that's an accountant that can help me in your network that you've done brokerage work for? That can save, because you have my statements in front of you and you know what my needs are. You know what my retirement fund is. You know what my capital disability fund is. So how about put me with someone who can save me money so I can make more money? And that's where the barrier is. So now when I know what I know, the more money I make, the less of it I spend on things that I did not think of first. So I think of first, and then I go consult someone and say, when I'm doing this, how do you think it's going to help me in the future? Where else before I earned and then I asked for opinions.
You know, you need to be self-empowered first.
Yeah.
You need to educate yourself first so that you can ask the right questions. You can have the right type of conversations.
Yeah, you can lead the conversation.
Exactly.
You can be led into the conversation.
Spot on.
Ne?
Spot
Yeah,
on.
and intimidated by someone's certificates on the wall and about, and then now you're like, okay, I need to agree. I need to agree.
No, absolutely.
No, they need to come to your party.
Yes.
You don't have
and
to go
your
to theirs.
level. And also, you know, one thing I've always said when it comes to financial planning, you can and you should look at different people. Not the first person who comes to you can be the right fit.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
So you can shop around.
Yes, 100%.
I didn't know that part.
100%. 100%. Imagine just going to a doctor. Sometimes you find that, you know what, I don't really like this doctor or I don't trust their opinion as such. Let me get a second opinion. And that's the same with financial planning, that it has to be the right fit for you to listen to them. Right? Because it's all about trust.
Yes.
It's all about this person gets me. They get my situation and they get the vision that I have for myself and for my family. Let's talk about the time that you fumbled the bag. Do you remember when you fumbled the bag?
I do it all the time. Most iconic one was when I walked away from my contract and I said, I can't do this anymore because I had to choose me and I didn't understand the restrictions that it came with. I did a lot of growing up in the 2 years that I was with that company and doing work for them.
Yes.
And I understood that it doesn't fit with who I am. And I took the money that they were proposing to pay me and divided it over my 5 years of my life and thought, can I make the same amount of money? Am I saying that my ability ends with this? And because I know I can't do both.
Yeah.
I can't be
There's
loyal to them
and
still be the person that I want to be. So I had to choose me again. So my decision to choose me did not change from when my mom sent me to Deneboom to go buy stuff and then said, take taxi twice or keep the money, versus me sitting in that corporate office lots of years later as an adult and thinking, here's a check that's dangled in front of your face. Are you going to choose this prison or do you want to be out there and see what you can really do?
Yeah.
I never doubted myself one single bit. I walked away there knowing very well that I can make this thing, whether it's not 2 years from now or 3 years, 5 years, I will always be able to make it.
Yeah.
You know? So I never had doubt in myself, but I knew that to a lot of people's eyes, I was fumbling the bag hard.
Yes,
and
I was about to say, then that's not fumbling. That's knowing your capabilities and trusting that, you know what, I can do this on my own.
Yeah, and when I couldn't afford things that I wanted, then I would think if I did that, I would be able to then realize the motivation is wrong.
Yeah.
Then maybe I don't want those things because why am I acting like the attachments of buying those things does not exist? You're sitting again in the dealership in the finance office and you're thinking about all the praise you'll get from buying this car, but you don't think, do I really care about the praise from people I don't know? So I realized that I later learned that some things are important, some things are not. You know, buying myself ice cream could feel the same bracket in my heart as buying myself a nice car.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just a feeling.
I think in economics they call it margin of utility, where you can have the same thing. It's either a car or ice cream or playing out, going to the park with your kids.
Yes.
You get the same satisfaction. Just that sometimes we forget that the simple things actually do bring joy. I want to talk about, you know, comedians getting into the space or as an entertainer, for example. What are some of the things that you wish you would have done right from the get-go, right from the first paycheck, even if it wasn't the biggest one? What are some of the things you wish you could have just done right from the get-go?
I think that's an impossible question to answer because if you look at the South African landscape of comedy, it's different from what the biggest comedy industries that we have in the world exist, the US one and the UK one. Very, very different.
Completely different.
In the UK and the US, you can work all of your life as a comic and earn very, very little, next to nothing. Or you could be part of a project of a management company or an agency that has a 5-year plan for you and then can make you a superstar. Then you can branch out into television and movies, which is always the ultimate goal because you can't be telling jokes forever. Like also planning to tell jokes is a big, big business and it takes a lot of effort. But going into a set and shooting a TV show or recording a podcast or doing a radio show, it's quite easy and you can make money and you can have the satisfaction and the time because now the more you do this thing, the less of a point you have to prove.
Yes.
It becomes about someone else now, less about you because you're like, I've told these jokes 30,000 times. It's not for me anymore, it's for you. And is it for you really or is it for the money that you're going to give me? So in this country, I wish the conversation that we were having as comics, we would have stuck to them. And I wish it paid enough then for us to be able to understand that everyone else who saw potential or what the potential of comedy was, we were able to take advantage of it. A lot of the corporate industry, the corporate entertainment industry, is built on the backs of entertainers.
Yeah.
You have musicians, you have comedians, you have MCs. But who's lighting up the place? So if you're paying me 35,000 Rand to MC for 4 hours, how much are you paying the lights? The lighting, the sound, the stage?
Yeah.
I want
The whole
that
works,
gig.
Yes.
Yeah, but the point of entry to that gig is there's no people of color.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get there, hi, we paid so much money, hi? So you better be on time, eh? But I'm like,
Hey, bo.
Mina, 35,000. Now you're diminishing my worth
Yes.
based on what you think I'm worth. Mina must forget everything. I'm working on it. I'm eating it. I'm looking at it.
Yes,
I'm
the
being
whole-
projected in it. I can hear myself from it. Can we talk about those individual bills that you have sent to the said company? So now I'm like, if I'm entertainment, why am I not able to take advantage of the entire value chain? It's the same conversation that people have about minerals in Africa. And I'm like, it's all good and well. You guys can talk all that you want. But who refines them?
Yes.
Who sells
It
them?
doesn't stay
Who has
here.
the network? Yeah, so before we can say, yeah, but when people are digging cobalt there, you're like, no, don't worry about cobalt. Cobalt is not the problem. It's the system that's already rigged to a point where if you're a player in it and you're at the bottom of it, point of entry is so far for you. You will never accumulate as a stand-up comedian 3 million Rand in 3 years or 2 years to be able to buy a rig and then sell it to the same companies that have been hiring you and say to them, I don't want to take 35,000 Rand for comedy anymore. I'll take 350,000 Rand for my rig. My point was the burden that we put on entertainers to be financially well off and savvy, it is not mostly because they are unable to take care of their finances. It's because the system will not allow them to
And
make
so
so much.
literally it's living hand to mouth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're forced to, just like any other person. The difference is you know me and I don't know you and I don't know where you work and how much you earn, but you can always assume how much I earn, you know?
What are some of your fears you still have about money right now?
That are always needed, that it makes people behave out of character. I know that it does with me as well
How so?
because there's times when I'm like, I don't have to do something because I've got the money.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I have to do it because I want the money. That's not my character. So I behave out of character because I want it or I don't have it. And I know that sometimes someone will call you insistently or nag you or be rude to you because they have it or because they have to pay you, you know?
Yeah.
Or if you want them to pay you, you better play nice. If you only have to step out of your house to see what money does. My security guard in my complex is not nice to me because he cares about my safety. It's because he gets paid. The gardener, he does the garden there in front of my place because...
We all need to get paid.
Yeah. So everyone at the shop, at the garage, at the parking, that guy, do you think he likes standing in the sun the whole day and telling me to reverse? Did he know I was coming? Or he took a gamble?
Yeah.
He's also taking a bigger gamble by not having a set price for what services he provides. So everyone has to behave out of character to get paid. The fact that we'll always need money to do the things that we want will always force us as human beings to behave out of character, whether to be extra rude or extra nice. But somewhere, somehow, we have to understand that to get it or to give it, we have to pretend to be someone else for that little moment when the transaction is happening. And for me, that's the sad part.
You know, I don't want to go deep into that conversation because truly someone could say, I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And yes, there will be challenges when dealing with certain characters for sure, that either you have to be nice or you are infuriated, but you can't say those words exactly, right? Also, that can be true, right?
I look at how my grandmother grew up and how she raised us from when we were like, we always say we went to boarding school because all of us had to go to my grandmother's in the villages in Denelton in Mpumalanga to live there for 2 years before school started. And I had never seen her stressed about money. I'd never seen her on phone calls for long talking about work and pretending to be nice because someone on the other side is an authority figure, is a boss. I've never seen her fighting with her neighbors because of jealousy or because of the kind of work that they do or the kind of schools they take their children to. I think as people of color, we only have to go to our grandparents' houses for a weekend to understand the intrinsic values that money instilled in us, not them. They didn't instill these values. We know what simplicity is. But when we got here, we had to start playing the game.
Yeah.
But then in these far-flung villages in South America, in Africa, in Limpopo, down here in Mpumalanga, where money does not control them, Their life experiences is so different. They're not chasing anything anymore. They can keep quiet if they don't want to say something. But we do so much because we have to get paid. That's the painful part. That's why even the richest people can't just donate money, because you'll collapse the system. You always need people to need you. Why doesn't Bill Gates just give all of his employees money and say, Bamban, don't come to work. Pay me so much to see if I'll come here if I don't need to be paid anymore.
I get what you mean.
So we don't want to, and we always have these mechanisms and devices to measure people's happiness and satisfactions. But all of them are manufactured because they're not based on their choices. They're based on what limited choice I give them to say, well, if you're not happy here, how can we make you happier? Do you want more money? Do you think then we come with you? You think maybe leaving this job? Then you go, okay, now you can see where your life is going to go if you leave. So do you think you're going to take the first carrot that I gave you maybe? Because the stick is not nice.
How do you price your services as an entertainer?
I think any entertainer that thinks they price their services is lying to themselves. You have an idea of what you would like. I would like X amount of money. But the people that are paying you know exactly what they want to pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be in someone else's hands. That's why I said the liberation for us to earn as much as we want, we're far from getting it because we'll never own the cameras and the microphones, the stages and the projectors and the contacts to sell those goods too.
Yeah.
But we're still selling services. We don't have goods yet.
And what scares you about that? That your ability to make an income is still largely based on you being Eugene. If Eugene cannot do what he needs to do, like you couldn't at some point, how does that impact your decisions?
I'm fortunate enough, in an unfortunate sense, to have lived that reality. And I thought to myself, pivoting is always important. When you do boxing, you're taught how to pivot. You're always going to get punched somehow. You're always going to be caught in a corner. But if you can pivot out of that corner, you're dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you felt the punch in your face. And now you're going, the day I get you.
Yeah. And I can see it coming. I'm anticipating it.
So pivoting is very important. Having friends and contacts outside of your current work environment, very important because it gives you a broader view of life. Understanding that nothing is permanent. The good times are not permanent. The bad times are not permanent.
Yeah.
And every season that comes is there for you. Things don't happen to you. They happen for you. So whilst I'm in the middle of anything that feels uncomfortable, it's happening for me. And I can always decide when I want the lesson to end. I can prolong it by saying, this time next year, I'll be free from the debt. Or I can say, actually, I feel like I want to be free from this thing tomorrow.
Yes, I'm tired of being sick and tired right now.
Yeah, I'm tired. So what do I need to do practically? Do I need to get more money? Do I need to give up this debt?
Yes.
So if I start being practical and understanding the fact that nothing is permanent, the good times and the bad times, and then my life becomes easy. And I start to understand that worry is interest on a debt that I'll never repay. My stress levels go lower and lower because I've surrendered. I've let go of control. I cannot control anything except for how I feel.
Yeah.
But why would I ignore the one simple thing that costs nothing and attend to things that are many and cost everything?
So at the end of the day, we all have a choice to live the life in the terms that we want.
Make the rules.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, do it. If you can't do it, you'll accept that I can't. But the day you can, you'll be like, you don't understand why I'm here ordering 6 dishes at the same time. Because there was a time where I couldn't buy them. So I accepted that part. I didn't kill myself or make anyone else miserable. But now that I can, you're sitting opposite me going, hey man, that's wasteful. I'm like, you were not there.
And so that's why even in the psychology of money, the author says no one is crazy for their choices.
Absolutely. People buy islands.
Is crazy
but the
for
same
their
people
choices.
that buy islands write books and criticize me for buying a jacket.
I hear you. No one is crazy for making their choices and decisions. Eugene, it has been such a pleasure.
The pleasure
Such
is
a
all
pleasure.
mine.
And I know that, not only people in the entertainment industry, but normal people, working class, they can completely relate to this conversation. So thank you so much for sharing yourself.
Thank
I really
you for
appreciate
having me.
it.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
This was a Sasfin Wealth podcast. Visit sasfin.com/wealth for more information.